If you're running Google ad campaigns right now and don't know the following metrics about your business, then you're probably just donating money to Google. If you don't know the following metrics, you can't run Google ad campaigns properly. And in this video, I'm going to show you what these metrics are and how to calculate them for your business. So let's start with average order value. Now, average order value is exactly what it sounds like. It's the average amount that your customers spend with you when they buy from you. Now, that might be one product, it might be multiple products, it might be one service, it might be multiple services. If you're not already familiar with this number, the easy way to calculate it is just to take a time frame, could be a month, could be longer, and take a look at the total revenue generated during that time period, and then divide that number by the total orders generated during that period, and that will give you an average order value. Now, with this metric, we're only talking about the one order. We'll be talking about subsequent purchases later on, but it's really important to start by calculating that number because that's going to feed into something else. Now, I'm going to come up with some example numbers so I can go through this process and make it a bit more real for you as we go through. Let's assume we're advertising an e-commerce business and the average order value is $75. Decent number, not too high, not too low, but we can use that as framework as we go through. Then after average order value, we need to calculate our customer lifetime value. Now, this number differs from the average order value in that it's going to factor in repeat purchases. Now, most businesses are going to have customers buy from them multiple times. Obviously, if you deliver a good product or service, a classic example probably being McDonald's. I don't know what the average order value is for McDonald's, probably $15 maybe, something like that. But the lifetime customer value for McDonald's is close to $50,000. And I know that because McDonald's use that in their training of their staff heavily. They say, don't think of every customer that walks in as someone who's just going to buy a burger and fries and a drink. Think about them as someone who's going to spend $50,000 with us over their lifetime. Now, that's quite an extreme case. Most businesses won't have that sort of differential between the average order value and their lifetime customer value. But it's really important to know the difference because you can afford to pay a lot more to acquire a customer if your lifetime customer value is really high. You know they're going to love your products and services. You know they're going to buy again and again. If we go on with creating example numbers so we can go through this process, assuming our average order value is $75, we could calculate that on average a customer purchased from us 5 times during their lifetimes. Therefore, our lifetime customer value would be $375. As a business owner, you are always going to want to increase the customer lifetime value, and that comes down to improving the product, etc., etc. But when we're just focusing on the marketing, we need to know that number to factor that in. Now, in terms of calculating customer lifetime value, this can sometimes be tricky, particularly for newer businesses where you're thinking, well, I've only been going a year, 2 years. We don't know how many times people are going to buy from us over the long run. I would calculate in that scenario what your customer lifetime value is for now. Again, you can just do some simple math to work that out. And knowing that that number is likely to increase over time. It's better to be conservative with this because it's going to factor in how much you can afford to pay to acquire a customer and what your customer lifetime value is. If we use our example business, our customer lifetime value right now is $375 because the average customer buys 5 times. However, in 10 years time, when the average customer has been able to purchase from our business a lot longer, maybe that number increases, maybe it doubles, maybe it more than doubles, and we can then reassess and potentially get more aggressive with our Google ad campaigns, thinking, great, we can now go ahead and acquire customers more aggressively because we know they're actually worth more to us over the long run. That's how I would approach that. So the next metric is cost of goods sold. So when we're selling our $75 worth of product or services, how much does it cost us directly to deliver on that product or services? So if it's products, you're talking about what you're paying the manufacturer. If it's services, it's how much you're paying your staff to directly deliver on that service. Or if it's subcontracted out, how much is that contractor charging to deliver on that service? So if we're thinking about an e-commerce business, $75 average order value, we might be looking at, say, a $25 cost of goods sold. That's how much goes directly to the manufacturer for the products, and then the rest is for all the other stuff that we're about to get to. The next one that not a lot of Google advertisers think about when they're doing these calculations and these costings is transaction fees. Now, transaction fees are usually relatively small, but all these things add up, as you'll see as we go through this. And transaction fees can vary quite a bit. If you're, for example, charging people in foreign countries, or you're charging in different currencies and it has to be converted, then Stripe, PayPal, etc., they're going to charge a good amount. In our example, AOV of $75, we might have a $2 transaction fee. Not massive, but it's going to factor into the eventual numbers, how we calculate what we can afford to pay to acquire a customer. Then we've got shipping costs. Now, again, this is going to vary depending on where you sell what it is that you sell. Are you selling international, domestically? If you're a service-based business, this is not something that you most likely need to worry about, or you might have travel costs instead in taking people to where they need to deliver the service and things like that. So again, this needs to be added in, something that not a lot of advertisers think about. Maybe you charge for it separately, in which case it's a different conversation, but it's usually going to be included in the AOV even if you charge for it separately. Here, let's go with an example of a $4 shipping cost per $75 AOV. And then there's sales tax, import duties, export duties. Again, will depend whether you're just selling nationally, internationally. There are different rules depending on where you are in the world and where you are selling to in the world. For example, in the UK, you pay a 20% sales tax on everything. So if you've got an AOV of $75, you need to knock 20% off that because that's going to go straight to the government in a form of a sales tax. Different countries have different rules. So again, that needs to be factored in because it's going to make a big difference to your eventual profit number and what you can afford to pay to acquire a customer. Then another one that not a lot of Google advertisers think about is your average refund rate. So nearly all businesses, whether they sell products or offer services, there's going to be some people that want a refund, either because they're not happy or because they want to exchange whatever they've bought for something else. Some businesses are going to be much more prominent than others. If we think of an e-commerce business, you might have quite a large refund rate because they're giving products back, it didn't fit, whatever it is that you happen to sell, send out new ones. If it's a service, that's likely to be smaller, but it applies to all businesses. If you sell online courses, some people are going to want refunds, some people are going to do chargebacks and things like that. So that needs to be calculated. You know, if we take a e-commerce business, for example, $75 AOV, we might have a 5% refund/return rate where people buy our products, realize it's not for them, and they send them back. So that 5% again of $75 AOV, average order value, is going to be $3.75. And that needs to be factored in because we're working out, okay, each time we get a customer, they're worth $75. No, we need to knock all these things off because we know on average, 1 in 20 or 5% of people are actually going to return this, and that's going to change how our numbers look come the end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year. Now, I'm going to show you how we use all those numbers that we just calculated to work out some really important stuff and how that plugs into our Google Ad campaign. Before I do that, I want to quickly mention our done-for-you Google Ad services. So my company, my agency, can create, manage, and optimize Google Ad campaigns. If you're interested, there's a link in the video description down below. You can go ahead and click on that, book a call with one of my team members to find out all the information. Hopefully, we get a chance to work together. Okay, so now we've got all those average costs calculated. And by the way, I do want to stress that this is an average for each one. Often when I talk about numbers, people will say, yeah, but some customers spend $400 and some customers spend $20. Yes, I know, that's okay. That's why we're calculating an average, and you can do the same thing for shipping. Sometimes shipping costs $15, sometimes it costs $1. Calculate an average. We need averages to be able to work out all these numbers. So you can do that with every single one of these. But if we take our $75 AOV, first thing we need to work out as an advertiser is what's our break-even amount? What can we spend to acquire a customer where we won't lose money on that first order? So we get $75 in, we deduct all those costs, what's left for advertising, okay? So I've got these written out in front. So we've got $75, we're gonna minus $25 for cost of goods, that's for the manufacturer or the service provider, or that's your staffing costs to deliver on the service. We're knocking off $2 in transaction fees, another $4 in average shipping costs, $15 in this case for sales tax, again, it's gonna depend where you are, and then $3.75, which is the average amount that will effectively works out when we factor in a 5% refund rate, return rate, etc. Now that leaves us with $25.25. So if it costs us nothing to make a sale, we just generate sales for free, we are left with a business as $25.25 profit on that sale. Now, of course, we need to factor in advertising costs. If running a Google Ad campaign is going to be advertising. So that number therefore becomes what we can pay in order to acquire a customer for break even. So if it costs us $25.25 per purchase, per conversion within our Google Ad campaign, then we are dead on break even. Now, of course, most businesses are going to want to be underneath that. So you might aim for a $15 cost per purchase or something like that in order to get that $10 difference. But that's just a really good point to think about once you go through that number and you calculate, what can I afford to spend? And the reason why I wanted to create this video is because I talk to a lot of people in all sorts of digital advertising, Google Ad campaigns and other platforms as well. And I ask business owners, marketers, etc., what's your break-even number? And they don't know. And it is quick and easy to work this out, and it is so important because all the decisions that you make within your Google Ad campaign are going to revolve around that number. Okay, we're currently generating purchases for $30 each. We're losing money on these, we need to adjust things. We're currently generating purchases for $15 each. That's nicely profitable, let's look to scale. You have to base it around that number, and that's quite simply how you calculate it. Now, what the best marketers, the best Google advertisers often do is they take a longer term approach, and they focus less on their break-even number based on each individual order, and they think more in terms of customer lifetime value and how that factors in, okay? So if you are able to, and this is going to come down to your cash flow, you can extend, in this case, our $25.25 break-even point higher, because we know the average customer buys from us 5 times. And we could get really aggressive and extend that all the way up to 5 times that, be $125 or so, $126. That would sort of leave no profit in there, so you wouldn't want to be that aggressive, but you could say, you know what, we know that on that first order, $25 is break even, but we're willing to pay $30, $35 for a purchase because we know we're going to get these people to buy again and again and again. And that's what the best marketers do. It allows you to be much more aggressive on the front end in terms of acquisition. Because when your competitors are making these calculations thinking, okay, we can only pay $25 per new customer, and they turn off their campaigns or scale back their campaigns to meet that, you can be like, I'm gonna pay 35, blow all these guys out of the water, gain tons of market share, build up a massive customer base, and then we're gonna make tons of money from the repeat purchases and the repeat sales, whether you're a product or a service-based business. And that's why obviously it's so important to the success of your Google ad campaign that whatever it is that you advertise, product, service, etc., is great and people have a good customer experience. So I wanted to really highlight that, because often I find Google advertisers are looking at other advertisers, their competitors, seeing that their ads are everywhere and they're clearly spending tons of money. How can they afford to do that? That's often why. They're just taking a longer term view of things. They're willing to be more aggressive up front because they've really worked out their customer lifetime value, and they've got products or services that people will buy again and again. They really like it, they'll refer to friends, and that just changes the dynamics and the maths on your campaign. So you calculate both numbers so you can know where you are aiming for on both, and then I think you can go through and make that decision-making process and work out what's best for you. It's also not smart to be super aggressive and just think of the long term, because of course, if you're paying, let's say $50 to generate that $75 AOV, you are taking a short-term cash hit until that person starts to purchase again, and you don't want to run into cash flow issues early on. So if you've in a healthy cash position to be able to do something like that, then great. If you're not, then you might have to be a little bit more conservative early on and look to scale things up later as you go. So just something to think about there. No matter which option you choose, I'd strongly recommend you check out this video. In it, I share a new Google Ads keyword strategy that is working really well for us right now. It's easy to implement when you know how. Go ahead and check it out.